if you take a moment and think about Hosea, who we just finished studying about, and look at Jonah, they are as different as night and day. The whole point of Hosea was Hosea being faithful, having a really hard message to deliver, actually many of those messages. He dealt with several kings, and nobody was listening. Jonah, on the other hand, is all about God interacting with his prophet. So the character traits and the mission that Hosea had was different than Jonah, and we'll talk about that difference. But this book is in the Bible because of us. I'll explain that a little more later. Now, every kid who's been in any kind of Sunday school, VBS, for any period of time, they know about the great fish and Jonah and the 3 days and the 3 nights. And that's all very important. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I wonder if we really get what was going on in Jonah's heart and mind. Because he does something that a rational person just wouldn't do. And we're going to talk about that because we're tempted from time to time to do the same thing. I have a challenge for you this week if you're willing to take it up. I want you to read and study at least 3 passages that illustrate the omnipresence of God. And if you're really up for a challenge, I want you to find a passage that resonates with you and commit it to memory. The one that I use for my own benefit is Proverbs 15:3, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. Kind of short, but it gets to the point. There's no hiding from God. Amen. But somehow we keep trying to think of creative ways to do that, right? We'll talk about that a little bit. Huh? That was Proverbs 15:3. There's some other great ones. I have a couple more, but I've given you a list there on the challenge in your handout. And take a look at those. And I believe one of those will resonate with you in your walk. And memorize that. Because if you'll do that, God will use that to help you in the future. I have no doubt about that. Jonah is interesting on so many levels. He's a prophet. He's called of God. He is, quote unquote, the prophet of God. He lives in the northern kingdom, and he lived during the time, I believe, of Jeroboam II, either right before or right after he came to the throne. In other words, he was already in his ministry as a prophet at that point. We're going to look at a couple verses to kind of clarify that, because I think putting him in the proper historical context is really important. Because if you don't do that, you kind of miss the whole point of this. And at least that's the way I see it. But hopefully you'll think the same when we get through with this. I have 3 starting points, and I can't decide which one I want to use. Jonah 1 and 2, the title is The Rebellious Prophet. Verse 3 of chapter 1. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa, and he found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof, went down into it to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. Now, everyone knows he was told to go where? A place called Nineveh, all right? So Nineveh, on this map, is there. Gath-hepher, where he lived, is here. Joppa, where he got on the boat, is there. Yeah. And Tarshish is there.
Really? Because I had always thought that Tarshish was just a variation on Tarsus, where Saul and Paul was from, like kind of Turkey.
We can't nail down exactly where it is, but we do think it had something to do with the southern part of Spain, probably right akin to Gibraltar, somewhere along in there. In terms of the known world, what does Tarshish represent? Yes. It's as far as you could go.
Wild, wild west.
In the opposite direction, right? Now, maritime travel in this time period is certainly not going down and getting on the steamer and getting in a stateroom, and not like that at all, right? In fact, the ship he got on, even though it was bound to Tarshish, by the way, Tarshish is a source of gold and several other things in Solomon's reign. And Solomon, of course, was before this time period we're talking about now. And so the ship that he got on isn't capable of making that entire trip in one without a stop. So typically they would launch from here and either go up along here and hit a couple ports there going that way, or they would come this way.
You didn't get a whole lot out of sight of land in these days. You're
No.
going because you weren't seaworthy.
Well, navigation was a bit of a challenge,
Yeah.
right? Because this was obviously way before even the sextant.
Row, row, row your boat.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this one at least had sails on it. But so the whole history here is fascinating to me. So he gets the call from God to go to Nineveh. And his response is he gets up from where he lives and goes to Joppa, which is the closest seaport, probably. Finds a ship that's going to Tarshish, which at least in Jonah's mind is as far away from Nineveh as I can go, and gets on it. Okay, so those, the Bible gives us that much. What's the fundamental problem with fleeing from the presence of an omnipresent God?
Can't be done.
Yeah. So logic would say, Jonah, what were you thinking? Right?
Well, if anybody would know that, it would be him. He's a prophet.
Wow. I'm going to jump way ahead just because you said that. Do you think Jonah had any knowledge or understanding of Psalm 139? That was written by David. How far downstream are we from David? Quite a ways. And Jonah's a prophet. He knows the Word of God. I don't mean to be offensive, but any person with normal intelligence would read Psalm 139 and come to a conclusion very quickly. And that would be, have you been there? Have you seen it? 139, 7 through 10? Turn over there and take a look. Yeah. So David is asking the question, where can I go and God not be there? Of course, the answer in a word is nowhere. But he gives you some examples. If I go to the highest place, or if I go to the lowest place, or I go to the farthest place, no matter what, he's there. There's a fundamental problem with running from an omnipresent God. A lot of time and effort, probably money spent. For what? And Jonah knew better. I'm convinced. I'm convinced he knew better. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the very meaning of Israel is, struggles or wrestles with God.
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
So it's that's what he's doing.
It could be like, I know God's going to be there, but I want to disqualify myself from this job. Like, you can't use me to Nineveh if I'm all the way on the other side of the known world.
But Abraham and Moses both, they were not robotic in their obedience.
So Jonah's not unique in this issue, is he?
That's my point.
And neither are we. What encourages people to think they can escape God's presence?
Well, one trivial thing is you see all the other people here under the sun running plays and getting away with it.
And do we ever do that? Just the thought that there's something about me that you don't know, and vice versa, kind of limits our rationale for a second, and we think, okay, well, if they don't know, I'm good, right?
Let's go back to the garden with
Yeah, the whole fig leaf thing. What's up with that? So fundamentally, we have this issue, right? We all do. It's not unique to Jonah. Now, Jonah was, I don't know, a little more provocative, maybe, a little more creative, perhaps.
So maybe Jonah's the Peter of the prophets.
He just a little more desperate because of where he was going.
Thank you. That is the key word. And we're going to get back to desperate here in a minute. And said, this is Jonah 2:2, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice. So in the span of these few verses we're going to talk about this morning, we're going to go from Jonah in full open, full throttle rebellion to abject humility. And this is when he gets there. What caused him to be there? In a word.
Disobedience.
Well, that's why he's in that position, but what caused him to make that turn?
Desperation.
Affliction. He says so. That's his testimony. I cried by reason of mine affliction. Chew on that for a moment. How bad did Jonah's circumstances become before he turned to God?
The worst.
Back to your previous slide there, he was metaphorically in hell, the belly of his
He
whale.
said, my soul faints. He was dying.
He was powerless to help the situation.
He has got
He had run out of options, money,
Air.
ideas, oxygen.
He wanted to run to the edge of the world, and he's been taken to the edge of death.
So how determined was Jonah to not go to Nineveh?
Edge of death.
He was all in. There's only one thing in his story that suggests he might not have been as far gone as we might think. And we'll talk about that in a second, in a few minutes. But man, he was highly motivated to not go to Nineveh. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit too. I would say for good reason. What's the point? When God calls us, you can rationalize, you can hypothesize, you can stall, you can just obey. Just obey. It's easier that way. Jonah was given an unthinkable mission. Last thing on earth he would have thought would be a reasonable thing for God to ask him to do. And his experiences illustrate important points about two things: obedience and the scope of God's care for all people. There are people that you are aware of or know about that you would think are a lost cause. There's no hope. But this even goes one step further than that. These people have done you or your country harm. This is easy. This is cherry picking. Khomeini in Iran. Think of the families who've lost loved ones. Yeah. How motivated is Jonah? What's his beef with Nineveh? Okay. Let me get some historical context here. As you recall, we've seen this chart a couple times now. Now, the guy who put this chart together, or the people who did, think Jonah was here in the reign of Jehoahaz. I don't think that's right, and I'm going to prove that here in a second. I believe that he's here, about a contemporary of Amos, probably, because he goes to Nineveh. Well, let's just look at that. Go to 2 Kings, chapter 14, verses 23 through 29. This is the summary of Jeroboam II's reign as king, okay? And Jonah is mentioned in here. Take a moment, read that passage, and tell me what you think Jonah told the northern kingdom during the reign of Jeroboam II. Now, over the last few weeks, I've tried to characterize the state of the northern kingdom under Jeroboam II. But in quick summary, they were prosperous, they were economically in good shape, they were militarily unchallenged. They expanded the borders, they ran off their enemies. Militarily, economically, politically, they were at the peak. In fact, the northern kingdom was probably never better, except under the reign of David. At least from those measures. How were they spiritually? They were in the tank. They were terrible. They were fully indoctrinated, consumed by idolatry. What do you think Jonah's message was?
In verse 25.
Is the word repent there? What does it say? So it's a secondhand reference to what he said, right? Jonah's not quoted there. What's the takeaway from what he heard, from what Jeroboam II and the people of the northern kingdom heard? What did he say was going to happen? Say again?
Blot out the name of Israel.
Blot out the name of Israel? Okay. Well, one thing, a little easier question. Where does Jonah live? Gath-Hepher, okay? That's a small community in the northern kingdom, about 50 miles north of Jerusalem. We know where that is. It's very close to Galilee, yeah.
Verse 25 does talk about him restoring the coast of Israel from these places that entering the Haman, Sea of the Plain.
And the last part of 25 says, which he spake by the hand of his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet, which was of Gath-Hepher. So the first part of that is he, speaking of Jeroboam II, restored the coast of Israel from the entering of Hamath unto the Sea of the Plain, that's the Sea of Galilee, according to the word of the Lord of God of Israel, which he spake by, so it's according to the word that Jonah gave. Jonah came and told Jeroboam and his court that they could reconstitute the northern kingdom after they'd been invaded by the Assyrians. Capital of Assyria is Nineveh. Now, what would have enabled, other than God, of course, but what would have enabled Jonah to come and deliver that kind of a message to the northern kingdom? because of what had happened in Nineveh. So, historically, what kind of people were the Assyrians? They were horrendous. They were absolutely merciless when they can't conquer people. The atrocities they would perform without batting an eye are beyond the pale. So wicked of a city, so wicked of a place, that Jonah and his contemporaries would have said, and this is going to sound very familiar, the only way to deal with them is by force. You hear that kind of logic today? By the way, there is an element of truth to that. So Nineveh is a completely godless place. They worshiped idols, Baal, Moloch, you name it, it's there. They sacrificed children to idols. When they conquered a place, there was hardly ever anything left. They were unbelievable. Now, I can't prove it, but I think Jonah had had some interaction with this at some point. Not by just word of mouth. I think he'd either seen it or maybe his family had experienced it, because he lived in the part of the northern kingdom that is being told here can be recovered. Okay, that's where he's from. So either his family directly or people he knew very well had experienced this. And when God said, rise up and go to Nineveh,
It sounds like a suicide mission.
oh, it was clearly that. No Jew would ever walk into Nineveh alone and ever walk out alive. So logic, rationale would tell Jonah, oh, you want me, what?
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, even if I did do that, what good's it going to do?
Right. And so thus, booking passage heading west is not unreasonable. From a pure reason standpoint.
Why do you care? Why should we care? Just smite him and be done with it. Like, why should I care? Why should you care? Like, he's their God. And I don't know.
It's hopeless.
Well, and it is from a human perspective.
So, this is what's torn me up this week. Do you know someone that's hopeless? Personally? Or at least maybe by second hand? Someone who you think would be completely impenetrable to the gospel. That's where Jonah is. That's what he believes God has asked him to do. So he expends all of his effort, energy, probably a good part of his money, and runs.
God, you really want me to go preach to the sociopath convention?
You really want me to walk into the Kremlin and try to witness to Vladimir Putin? That's the order of what we're talking about here. You really want me to go to Cambodia and walk into a Khmer Rouge camp and share the gospel with them? If you know the history of Cambodia, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Dying by fish is probably preferable to that.
Jonah probably figured, hey, anything's better than that, right?
It seems to me like he just totally let his flesh take over. Because he knows, if he's a prophet, he knows God knows better than, he knows the end of this. He knows God knows and what he wants him to do.
So what I'm trying to communicate is 2 Kings 14, 20 through 29 is the story after the story. After he goes to Nineveh. We're going to talk about all the stuff that happens at Nineveh because it's fascinating, like I said, on several levels. He goes back to his home place, tells the king and says, you know what? You don't have to worry about Nineveh. And by the way, he's right, because it was another 100 years. God had already, through other prophets, declared that the northern kingdom was going to go down. And God gave them a 100-year stay of execution because of what Jonah did.
And part of his overall plan. You know, there were reasons that will be clear to us in eternity.
Yeah. How complex is God's plan? How much bigger are his thoughts and ways than ours? When would Jonah ever in his life have imagined he'd walk into Nineveh and preach?
And walk out alive.
And walk out alive. Exactly. Okay, here's the rundown. Jonah runs. A fascinating call for prayer. A search for an answer. God, why are you doing this? Desperate measures, and then a desperate prayer. That's how I've outlined that for today. Okay, I've told you what's wrong with Nineveh, or we've discussed what's wrong with Nineveh as a field of labor from Jonah's perspective. Last place on earth he wanted to go. No inclination, no desire, no compassion. No compassion for those people at all. And did they deserve any? No. By the way, that's right where you and I were at one point. Jonah could have stayed right at home and refused to go. He didn't have to go anywhere. He could have just said, I'm not going. I'm staying right here. So why did he run?
Well, I mean, it sets up the whole situation with the fish. So.
Have you ever, go ahead.
Well, I mean, if they've already, he knows that they've been there. They know if he doesn't go to them, they might come to him.
Okay, I think that's good. Have you ever been honest with yourself and said, I'm engaged in this activity so I don't have to deal with that problem? I'm going to stay busy doing this so I don't have to deal with that. Ouch. So Jonah decides, I'm going to get busy and I'm going to get out of here. And that means I don't have to sit here in my home and contemplate what God's asked me to do.
I call that avoidance behavior.
Yeah, I think that's what that's called. We've already talked about Psalm 139. I'm convinced Jonah knew about it. I think he was familiar with it. I think he knew exactly what that said. I think he knew, despite the fact that God's omnipresent, I can somehow foil God's plan. I can somehow avoid this call. Wow.
We can convince
Yeah,
ourselves
seriously,
of anything.
I've had it explained to me that in Judaism, Abraham discussing with God over, Sodom and Gomorrah and the number of people we've got to save, that is viewed as this courageous and noble act. And so I'm theorizing that Jonah's playing some game like that, where I'll go do this instead.
Since you brought that up, who was that conversation? Who benefited from that conversation? Abraham's negotiation.
Well,
It was for Abraham.
I mean, sure, but...
I mean, God knew all along, right?
Oh, okay.
So,
I'm still
so what's the...
over my good Jewish friend.
Yes, that's a good thing to do. If we're honest, we've all done this. Now, we probably haven't been asked to do something on the scale of going into Nineveh and preaching the gospel, but God's probably laid on your heart to do something. And you've decided, I'm going to do this instead, I'm going to busy myself with that, or I'm going to... That's really what this is about. Why would we ever think it's possible to run or hide from God? It's silly on its face, isn't it?
But again, the patriarchs in the Old Testament interacted with God and expressed opinions and tried to negotiate. So it's
do we do that?
not even a thing to do.
Do we do that?
Sure we do.
Try to make bargains?
Oh, absolutely.
God, if you'll do this, I'll do that.
Absolutely. And I laugh at myself every time.
Jonah chapter 1. Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me. I don't really mean to be a smart aleck, but Jonah could have said, okay, God, are you just now figuring that out? I mean, how long has this been a problem? Instead of thinking, wow, God's ready to do something about this. Furthest thing from Jonah's mind. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. I just can't get over that. I'm going to run from the presence of the Lord. Went down to Joppa, found a ship going to Tarshish, so he went and paid the fare thereof and went down into it, and to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. What's the first word in verse 4? But. The Lord sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. Then the mariners were afraid, and cried every man unto his God, little g, and cast forth the wares that were in the ship into the sea, to lighten it of them. But Jonah was gone down into the sides of the ship, and he lay and was fast asleep. That is impressive. Now, this isn't a 1,200-foot luxury liner, folks. This thing is probably 60 feet long, and the waves, we don't know. It just says a great tempest. How bad would the storm have to be to make the mariners afraid?
And throw their goods overboard.
And
It looked like it was going to break.
says like the ship's going to break, okay. And all the stuff they had on the ship they had taken to trade to make money is over the side. So what's the state of mind of the mariners on the ship?
Boys, this could be it.
This is it. We're done. They are fighting for their life.
Red fox, it's the big one.
It's, yeah. And Jonah is in somewhere in the bottom of the ship, asleep. You know, the metaphor of that is amazing. Are we asleep and God's calling?
Just a forward reference to Jesus on the Sea of Galilee.
Wow. Somebody comes and wakes him up. Then the mariners were afraid and cried every man unto his God, cast forth the wares, so on, and he's fast asleep. Number 6. Who comes? Shipmaster. The guy that's in charge. The captain. Came to him and said unto him, What meanest thou, O sleeper? Arise, call upon thy God, if so be that God will think upon us that we perish not. Every soul on that ship is convinced they're going to die. He comes and wakes up Jonah. And what does he ask him? Look at those words. What does he ask him to do? Call upon thy God. What's the spiritual mentality of the people on this ship?
One of them's going to answer.
We've all got a God. Everybody get down and pray.
Sailors are highly superstitious.
We need divine help. And they weren't particular about which divine helped them. Right?
Get it done.
Watch what happens. This is fascinating to me because why is Jonah on this ship?
Because God put him there.
No, he put himself there, but God always works everything for good.
So, can God use Jonah even though Jonah's in full-fledged, full-throttle rebellion?
This is free will and destiny interacting in real time.
Fascinating. It doesn't say what Jonah does immediately following that, but in verse 7 it says, "And they said every one to his fellow, 'Come, let us cast lots.'" How in the world they have time to cast lots, I don't know, because they're trying to bail the thing, throw the stuff over the side. I don't know, but anyway. So they're going to cast lots that we may know for whose cause this evil is upon us. They're convinced it's one of them, right? By the way, there's not like 20 passengers on this thing. I get the impression there was one, Jonah. But anyway, whose cause this evil is upon us, so they cast lots, and guess what? The lot fell upon Jonah. You be the guy.
So you have the ship, the storm, the lots, all of these things. Again, Jonah decided to do this. But
If this was a cartoon, there'd be a big red arrow, pointing at Jonah right now. You be the problem. Then said they unto him, in the calmest voice imaginable, "Tell us, we pray thee, for whose cause this evil is upon us. What is thine occupation? And where are you from? What is thy country? And of what people are?" What do they want to know?
what did you do to piss off heaven?
Okay. I don't know that I would have said that, but yeah, what's up with this? Why are we all going to die because of you? Isn't that it? Why are we all going to die because of you? His answer is fabulous. And he said to them, "I am a Hebrew." Like they didn't know that. "And I fear the Lord." Really? "The God of heaven." Oh, that one. "Which hath made the sea and the dry land." And that's all he said. That's all is recorded anyway. Did he say he was running from God? Well, hang on. "Then were the men exceedingly afraid," as if they weren't afraid enough. Now they're really afraid. "And said unto him, Why hast thou done this?" Now watch this. "For the men knew that he fled from the presence of the Lord because he had told them." So Jonah has told more than is recorded here, right? But now they know that the God Jonah is running from is the God that created heaven and earth. Now these guys are probably quasi whatever, whatever they believe.
They're all pagans.
They're all pagans, probably, yeah. But now Jonah has said, "I fear the Lord." You notice that's all capital Lord. That's Yahweh. "Then said they unto him, What shall we do unto thee, that the sea might be calm unto us? For the sea wrought and was tempestuous. And he said unto them, Take me up, cast me forth into the sea, so shall the sea be calm unto you. For I know that for my sake this great tempest is upon you."
It's my fault. I did it.
Wow. Would God use extreme measures to deal with a defiant, disobedient child? He just did. And he will again. By the way, how many of you are in here familiar with something called the terrible twos? Where does that come from?
Parents of a terrible two.
Every child, pretty much.
Experiencing human nature firsthand.
It's funny how sweet and cuddly and lovely they are.
Until they're mobile.
No, they're not.
Biologically, what happens at about 18 to 30 months?
You need to say things like no. They exercise their will.
You get curious and mobile.
Now, I'm putting extreme in a category here, but does that require some extraordinary measures to deal with that? I actually wrote off for a book. It's called The Strong-Willed Child, written by Dr. James Dobson, because we needed help. And by the way, he's...
That wasn't even your child.
Oh, yeah, it was.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't. Did this crew have any knowledge of the God of heaven? I think they did, because it said they were more afraid after Jonah said that. We don't know what that experience was. We don't know what they'd heard. We don't know what, but they were more afraid after they heard who Jonah was running from. He's not running from Zeus. He's not running from Baal. He's running from Yahweh.
Not running from a localized God.
Yeah.
Well, the first Carney plane he sent out in Hebrew, and I think right there encapsulated everything they needed to know.
Probably, yeah. Most important question I'm going to ask you. Why didn't Jonah just jump overboard on his own? Why did he tell them, you got to throw me overboard? If Jonah was really totally all in, by the way, I'm not recommending suicide here, but people get there. People get so desperate, run so far from God that they will actually take their own life. And we all know it. Jonah didn't go that far. He did everything else. He said, if you want the sea to calm, you got to throw me overboard. He wasn't willing to say, hey, look, I'm the problem. I'll take care of that. And he could have just run and jumped over the side.
I mean,
Why didn't he do that?
I think it may have been the same thing that drove him to pray when he was in the belly of the whale, that feeling that I'm going to die and I am in enmity with, like, my relationship with God is severed. Or not severed, but in rocks, like, we're not in good terms.
I agree. I don't think he's there yet, but the reason he won't take his own life is because in his self-awareness, he realizes, man, I'm running from God. This is, whatever they do to me, that's fine, but he wasn't going to pull the trigger himself.
well, anyway, so that's some internal stuff, but externally, this is a moment, and these sailors, there needs to be a sacrifice, but
They're certainly used to that.
doesn't ever sacrifice itself ever. So if we realize there needs to be a sacrifice, and Jonah needs to be it, then they need to do it.
It didn't take a lot to persuade him, did it?
No,
Well, look-
because they understood that concept. Okay, yes, there's this cause and effect nature reality. He screwed up. We're in this storm and about to die. So if we get rid of him, then we can alleviate the storm.
Well, they didn't do it right away. They still tried rowing to land.
Pause that thought for one moment and read the next verse. This is fascinating. After he tells them that, what do?
Still try to do this their own way without having to do it that way.
Verse 13, important word. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring it to the land, but they could not.
Well, fine.
They expended all of their physical effort. They gave their last measure and realized we don't have a choice. He's got to go over. There's a whole message just in that. And then watch what happened next. Verse 14, wherefore they cried unto the Lord, all caps, and said, we beseech thee, O Lord, we beseech thee, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not upon us innocent blood, for thou, O Lord, hast done as it pleased thee. Does that sound like a bunch of idolaters? Watch the next verse. So they took up Jonah and cast him forth into the sea, and the sea ceased from her raging, like that. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and offered a sacrifice unto the Lord, and did what? Made vows. What just happened?
Well, they saw their God didn't work when they prayed to him.
Uh-huh.
Now this one did.
Have we got a conversion here? Have we got a revival here?
I mean,
Out in the middle of the ocean?
but with the exception of the guy that needs to teach you what all that meant, you just got rid of it.
What happened there?
So you're a sailor, the storm's going, you've already thrown all of your wealth, you're living, and this God you're holding, he's not doing anything either. So there's an opportunity here.
None of this is circumstance. Well, none of this is by chance. Roll back the story for just a bit. The day when Jonah walked down to the pier and said, hey, I want to go to Tarshish. Anybody have any clue whatsoever what was going to happen? No. Well, maybe Jonah. But nobody on the ship said, hey, no problem, man. I'll take your money. I'll take you to Tarshish. No problem. Hop aboard. No hesitation, no thought or concern about it at all, right?
Well, was there nothing abnormal about it?
Yeah.
Externally speaking.
Yeah.
It's a great example of just like no matter what mistakes, what really wrongdoing, disobedience we have in our life, if we give it back to the Lord and God can bring wonderful things through it. You know, He brings it, looks like a conversion possibly for these sailors. I mean, God can use whatever situation we find ourselves in if we give it to the Lord at that point. Like, it's in God's hands at this point.
Now, this is a very dramatic thing. I mean, the sea stopping, the sea calming down just, I believe, was instantaneous. I think as soon as Jonah's feet hit the water, that storm stopped.
Like when Jesus told us to be still.
Exactly. The parallels are just unmistakable. So here's a group of men who are convinced without any hesitation that they're going to die. This storm is going to bust their ship up and they're all going to drown. We've rowed as hard as we can row. We can't get to land, even though they kind of know where it was. I don't think they were that far away off land, probably. And they were done. They took the last measure. They threw their paying passenger overboard, and the sea stopped, just like Jonah said it would.
And I bet Jonah didn't pop back up either because they're probably waiting for him to appear and the fish was ready for him.
I have to go there too. So here's Jonah, flying down to the water. He hits the water, and he thinks, okay, this is done. I've escaped. I'm not going to Nineveh. He just, I won. Really. What does verse 17 say? Now the Lord had prepared a great fish. What does that mean? When you see those words, the Lord prepared a great fish.
Take it by surprise. God had already put things in motion.
Not a natural creature.
Say it louder.
Not a natural creature.
Not a natural creature. It says the Lord prepared a great fish. And in the New Testament, they call it a whale. The Lord prepared it. Do we need to know anything else? Not really. Not really. The Lord prepared it, whatever it was. And of course, what we're about to read in these next couple of minutes here, by the way, you can read all of chapter 2 in less than 90 seconds. This is also fascinating to me. We're going to take 3 days and 3 nights of the worst thing you could imagine and boil it down into 90 seconds. Go with me. Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice. For thou hast cast me into the deep. Watch this. In the midst of the seas, and the floods compassed me about, all thy billows and thy waves passed over me. Then I said, I am cast out of thy sight. Yet I will look again toward thy holy temple. The waters compassed me about, even to the soul. The death closed me round about. The weeds were wrapped around about my head. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains. The earth with her bars was about me forever. Yet hast thou brought up my life from corruption, O Lord my God. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came in unto thee, into thy holy temple, into thine holy temple. They that observe lying vanities forsake their own mercy. But I will sacrifice unto thee with a voice of thanksgiving. I will pay that I have vowed, Salvation is of the Lord. And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited Jonah upon the dry land. Is verse 8 a confession? What had Jonah done?
The word lying makes me think he'd lied to himself.
He had lied to himself. He knew there was no escape. He knew there was no running away from God. He took himself out of the place where God could grant him mercy by lying to himself. Wow. Think about that. He acknowledged it, he admitted it, and he got right with God. His last word was, I will pay that I have vowed. What did he owe God? Huh?
His life.
His life. I think he's making a direct reference to the vow he made when he became a prophet. When he answered the call to be a prophet, he agreed to go deliver the message wherever God told him to go. Unconditional. And he put a condition on it. And now he's saying, I should have done that. Wow. What do we owe God because of salvation? We ought to be thankful for God's chastening, and if we're smart, we'll learn to respond quickly instead of trying to run and hide. Thanks for your attention.